Is the work world confusing? Congested? Are you just trying to find your way? There must be a light at the end of this tunnel. Well, there's a way to find your calling, to find that job you want and deserve, when someone will come up to you and say, "You're hired." Hi, I'm Steve Piazzale, a career and life coach, and welcome to Your Hire, a show about jobs and careers in which we answer questions such as, how do I find work that makes me come alive? How do I get that job I want and deserve? How do I become a thought leader in my field? Well, we answer such questions by having on the show knowledgeable, lively guests, and we certainly have one today. Before I introduce him, though, I'd like to invite you to check out my website where we've added the 12 keys to getting a great job. You can sign up for the free career newsletter. You can watch prior episodes of the show, and you can find out about the career coaching I do. And essentially what I do is work with people one-on-one to help them get unstuck, define their goals, and achieve them faster than they would on their own. This is all at www.bayareacareercoach.com. That's www.bayareacareercoach.com. Well, this fellow may look a little familiar to you. It's Michell Levy. He was on the show 5 years ago, but he's a moving target. He's onto some interesting things. He's a thought leader architect and CEO of Think Aha, a firm that turns corporate experts into thought leaders. And as a parallel entrepreneur, he's created and operated 15 firms, and that could be dated already, but as I read it, and partnerships, and has authored over a dozen, I'm hearing 19 or 20 business books, including his most recent, Creating Thought Leaders, and that's what we're focusing on in this discussion, thought leadership. Welcome to the show, sir.
Steve, great to be here.
Welcome back. So why don't you tell us in a general way what you're up to these days, and then more focused on thought leadership and what you're doing in that area?
Oh, sure. Well, what's interesting about LinkedIn is the ability to actually see whether or not you have a unique title or what your title is in the world. And there is 117,000 people who have the word social media in their title. There's only 500 or 600 with the word thought leader architect. Mm-hmm. And there's only one, or at least I was the original thought leader architect. I've had at least one copycat, and hopefully we'll get a bunch more. Uh-huh. And what does that mean? It's going into corporations and helping companies, helping individuals understand how to pull together social media, traditional media, and employee engagement, employee empowerment. So in essence, Steve, I'm having a lot of fun helping people be successful, as always, putting tools in the hands of individuals, in this case a lot of corporations, to help them figure out how to be successful in today's world.
So do you actually go into the corporations and work with individuals within it, or is it more communicated through social media? Or how do you actually connect with these people?
So if I said yes and yes,
all of those?
It's all of the above. In some cases, it's the delivery platforms are varied. In some cases, it could just be a keynote speech where you get a lot of people excited. In other cases, it's one-on-one coaching and mentoring, and that coaching and mentoring doesn't actually, in today's world, doesn't have to be in person. Right, so it's really nice, and you go to meeting or a number of different tools. Skype's a great way. There are a lot of coaches who do their business through Skype, and of course there's a number of tools today that just make it real easy to do this and to have fun. And so what I do is help individuals and help companies figure out, how do you deploy the tools, how do you use them, how do you be successful at them, what are the metrics in place, what is the architecture you need to put in place to allow your people to be successful.
Okay, so let's get into thought leadership right directly. What is it and why is it important to be a thought leader?
So the importance of being a thought leader in today's world, the sales cycle has completely changed. Somewhere between 60 to 80% of consumers or even B2B companies are looking and doing their research online before they actually talk to the company. Yeah. In the real estate industry,
that's true for job hunters too.
Oh, it's
they check
absolutely,
you out.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No. It's also particularly true in real estate. It's up to 90%. So if you're looking for a house, you can do 90% of your research before you actually call on a realtor. So what does that mean? The old sales cycle that used to exist, that is now gone. It's disappeared. And so what has to happen, the company needs to allow themselves to put their own employees out there, but not just as employees trying to say, hey, here's the party line, here's the company, here's how we do. The employees need to be real, they need to be authentic, they need to be honest, they need to be trustworthy. You have to understand that if somebody's talking and giving you an opinion of what they like and how they like it, it's sort of like talking to your friend. You want to trust that they're telling you the right stuff. And that's what a thought leader is. It's we'll cover this a little bit more, but it's the go-to person. It's a person you want to go to. If you wanted to look for a job in the Bay Area, well, who would if you typed in the search, I'm looking for a job in the Bay Area, they're going to stumble upon your picture, your face, and your area. And when you talk to you on the phone and you give somebody an opinion, positive or negative, on the other side, they're going to want to think that you are the expert, you are the thought leader, you're the person who is giving the opinion that's in their best interest. Well, that's what companies need to do as well. And if companies are not successful at allowing their employees to be honest, true, be able to go out there and really share their opinion positively, positively I mean in a way that's realistic, that has integrity. Because if they don't have integrity, if they're not honest, they're not straightforward, what can you do today? You complain.
Are there thought leaders on two different levels, like a thought leader within a company and then a thought leader that makes presentations at conferences and goes beyond their company, or is the term thought leader in the way you define it within a company?
Oh, well, so the term is very broad, and it's used in a number of different cases today. In one case, people were using thought leaders as the executive team, as the top-level person who's really coming up with a brand new way of doing things that no one's done before. But let's do another way to think about it. Every salesperson in an organization, by definition, needs to be, in today's world, what's called social selling. Every salesperson needs to be a micro-marketer, i.e. every salesperson needs to be a thought leader. That doesn't mean that they have to come up with new creative thoughts themselves. What they have to be able to do is understand what's in the marketplace, understand what their company's saying, understand what their competition is saying, and be able to share that to you so you understand what that means.
But again, is it within a company or outside the company or both?
Oh, it's both.
It's both.
It's both.
Okay. And how's it different than an expert?
So
somebody's an expert in a certain area, but how would they not be a thought leader? Is it they're not recognized for what they do? Or?
So I think that's you hit the nail on the head. Everyone knows what an expert is, and everyone has expertise in a number of different areas. The thought leader is the person who is the recognized expert, the person who you go to at the company, right? And so if it's a particular technology you're using, great. If people recognize, if I had a question on getting the next job or how do I transition myself or things that are going on, there's a couple of different areas that I think about in the Silicon Valley, but one of the people I may think about, Steve, is you. And if I'm thinking of you and you're my go-to person, you're my thought leader in this space.
Okay. The kind of personality or skill set somebody has to have to be a thought leader. Do you have to be outgoing? Is there some characteristics that thought leaders have in common that you can kind of maybe groom somebody even to be a thought leader?
Yeah, it's if you think about somebody being either an extrovert or an introvert, both can actually be thought leaders. People can do things in a different way. Let's go back to the salesperson. If a salesperson is responsible for selling something in a geography, a certain product within a geography, you want them to be the thought leader. You want to be able to ask that person, what is the best way to go about doing this? And they actually tell you, and you believe them. Now, salespeople sometimes are extroverts. There are a lot of times where salespeople are introverts, right? They are not going to be boisterous. They're not going to share stuff. But when they talk, you believe them. And that's what it's all about. It's the integrity, it's the honesty of being able to believe what people are talking about, of where they're going.
So you have a sense that you're talking to somebody who genuinely is an expert, but also is recognized as an expert.
It's what's the shocker for me, or the shocker where people are going to think about is I actually think that 60% of the organization needs to be thought leaders. Right, 60%.
60%.
That's a huge, absolutely huge number.
Are they all thought leaders in different areas, or can they be thought leaders in the same?
Well, they could be, if they're all thought leaders in the same topical area, they're most likely thought leaders that are different in different geographical areas.
Oh, okay.
Right? So if everyone's dealing, if you're talking about college hiring as an interesting example, there's probably somebody responsible for each individual state or certain class. Maybe it's a top 10 in the next tier. Well, that person, there will be different thought leaders who are responsible for dealing with each one of those universities, each one of them being the go-to person you go to in a certain area. So in that case, they're all thought leaders. Remember, 60% being thought leaders.
Wow.
The other thing that's unique is I believe that 100% of every employee needs to be an advocate. Not necessarily an evangelist, but an advocate.
An advocate for what?
An advocate for the company. It's a great question,
okay.
right? An advocate for the company.
Not for themselves.
Well, that's another issue. Yeah, let's get back to it. We'll talk about personal branding in a second. But yes, they need to be an advocate for the company. So what does that mean? What happens today when you're working in a job? What happens when you come home? You're going to complain to your family. You're going to complain. Everyone does, right? You know what happened today, honey, and that happens at the dinner table. Now, in today's world, as opposed to just happening at the dinner table with a family, it happens online, socially, to a couple or tens or hundreds or thousands of people, and you can't stop social media and people sharing on social media. So what does that mean? They need to come home and feel good about what they do. When's the last time you've heard people at Facebook, Google, Twitter, the newer companies where the younger generation are in control and they're saying, hey, this is how we should run a company? What are they doing? They're putting the tools in place so that the employees are advocates for the firm. They're excited about it. They have passion about being there, right? That's what's pretty exciting in today's world.
Okay. How do you become a thought leader? You're not. I mean, I've had a lot of clients that say, I want to be more recognized within my company. There's more I can do. What are the components of being a thought leader, and how do you become a thought leader? What are some, maybe those are two different questions, tips you have. Maybe what are the components? Let's start with that.
Sure.
What are the components of being a thought leader? What are the different pieces? And then if you could segue into how do you take it up a notch and become a thought leader?
So I like to refer to, in the book, Creating Thought Leaders, I have an acronym that really helps me understand when I'm talking with somebody, what do they need to do to become a thought leader? And the acronym is HELP, H-E-L-P. And what's interesting about that acronym is each one of those 4 letters means something different for me. Right, so H is healthy following, E is exceptional execution, L is for thought leadership, and P is for proven platform. So let's talk about each of those.
Okay.
All right, so healthy following. Once again, if you're the recognized expert in your area and people are following you, then that makes a lot of sense. If they're not, what you need to do is figure out how do you get more people to want to pay attention to you? How do you get more people to want to like you? Well, if you're actually sharing information that's valuable to your audience, you end up getting a healthy following, and you could do that through social media, you do that through the company, you could do that through newsletters, email blasts. There's a number of different ways to do that. We can go into that detail. Now, being able to, number E, exceptional execution. Well, that just means when you say you're going to do something, you do it.
You do it, yes.
Period, right? I mean, I'm a big fan, I've always been, you say what you do and you do what you say. Right? So if you're interviewing with me, you want to work on my firm, if you say you're going to do something, you need to deliver on time.
There's a series of books called Spencer. They did the TV show Spencer for Hire, and he said, it's fiction, but he said that what he looks for in somebody is that they do what they say they're going to do. And that's the single most favorable characteristic that they can have.
It is to me, and surprisingly, the bar is set so low that I consider exceptional execution people who do what they say they're going to do. Okay, so what's thought leadership? Let's talk about L when you're talking about thought leadership and getting content out. You know what it is? It is sharing information that's relevant and valuable to you, right? So you don't have to be the thought leader, you don't have to create it all yourself. You don't have to be sitting in this think tank and coming up new and unique ways of doing things that no one else has done before. But if you're a good reader and you pay attention to what your friends are reading and what they're doing, and you share relevant content with others, you become the thought leader because you are curating content that other people have shared with you.
So you can do that through blogs and all aspects of social media and tweeting?
My favorite.
Or giving talks?
Absolutely. My favorite is I've created on LinkedIn a LinkedIn group. And we call the group the Thought Leadership Best Practices Group. Yes, I started that a small while ago, and we've grown it, and it's got a good membership base now. And instead of actually every day coming up with new things myself, what I'm doing is, as a thought leader architect, I'm going to be reading 5 to 10 articles every day. So I pick one. I pick one I like, and I share it to the group, and I say what I like about it. Right? So if you're following me, right, it's a very nice one-to-many type relationship because I'm sharing my opinions and thoughts, but I'm not necessarily sharing them directly with Steve Piazzale. I'm actually sharing them with the group, and if you have time, you might read it. What's fascinating to me is when I go to events and people see me and they're following me or they're part of the group, they tell me what a phenomenal job I'm doing, and I don't look at it that way. I look at it as, well, I'm educating myself, and then I'm spending another 10 minutes educating everyone else.
So if you had to say like maybe 3 to 5 things somebody could do in their position to get more recognized as a thought leader, what would they be?
Oh, absolutely. So the last thing, by the way, is the platform, and we'll talk.
Oh, okay.
And so on the help, so the L was the thought leadership. P is having a proven platform, and I'll integrate this in. Okay. So what do you have to do to start? This is always the right question. What do you do today to start?
Yeah. What?
First, you have to define your space, right? So what are you an expert in, and where do you want to be the recognized thought leader? Hey, let's say you can fix any copy machine, any mechanical thing in your company, right? That's kind of cool. Well, you want to make sure that people know that. If you want to do it across the entire company or across an entire geography, you want to let people know that. Let's say you're really good at taking 3 or 4 different products and actually explaining them properly to a prospect, or I call them future advocate, nobody knows. Well, you want to start telling people about it. What do you do in today's world? You create videos, you do other things where people know.
Or maybe within a company making presentations.
Absolutely, you could do presentations internally or presentations externally. Do brown bag lunches.
Brown bag lunches, yeah.
So what's interesting is you want to define where you want to be an expert, where you want to play. Step number 2 is you actually go about finding who else is playing in that space, right? Who are your peers? Who are out there doing the types of things you're doing that are today the thought leaders in your space? And once you've identified who they are, you want to make friends with them. Mm-hmm. And how do you do that in today's world? Oh, it's so amazing, Steve. It's so much different than it was 5-10 years ago. You follow on LinkedIn, you follow them on Twitter or Facebook, you subscribe to their blogs, and now here's the trick. You read what they do and you comment on it. You see what they say in Facebook and you like it or you share it, right? And so what happens is after you've been following somebody for a while, not stalking, following somebody for a while, and you're liking the things they're doing and sharing the things they're saying, when you go to approach them, they actually know who you are. And I have a great story about that. But let me give you number 3 before we come back to that story.
Yeah.
So number 3 is you start creating stuff yourself. Right? So you start creating the types of things where people are now following you. If you've made a bunch of friends who are thought leaders and you're starting to share their stuff, well, why don't you share them on your own blog? Or you go to LinkedIn. I find the LinkedIn group one of the best ways possible.
It's really,
so you create a group on LinkedIn and you start sharing other people. Now, what's interesting is when you share other people's material, what I do today on the blog is not only do I share their content, but I start following them on Twitter, I start following them on Facebook, and then I actually say, hey, I make a post on various social media, actually including the fact with their Twitter handle, by the way, loved your article, shared it here. At least 50% of the thought leaders who I'm sharing their material come back to me and say thank you or follow me because that's what I'm doing. And so it starts building.
Let me just play devil's advocate for a second. Is there any resistance or obstacles to becoming a thought leader? Like, for example, a company frowning on you spending time tweeting and retweeting, or do you have to somehow say you're doing it on your own time? Are there obstacles to becoming a thought leader?
There are.
Or jealousies,
Unfortunately, there are many. We are still, the way companies run today, the way many companies run today, are still a direct outcome of the industrial age. You know, the time and motion studies where, you know, you have to sit in your chair for 40 hours a week and do the right thing, and you can't make a brand for yourself. You have to make a brand for other people. And you know, those companies, it's the good news or bad news, they're disappearing.
Okay.
They're disappearing because
so the trend is towards accepting and understanding.
Absolutely. Because once again, let's go back to that sales cycle. If prospects, future advocates, are not actually approaching the company to find out information about the services and offerings the company has, where do they get it from? Well, they get it from the internet. They get it from talking to their friends. They get it from a number of different places. If you're not out there and your employees are not out there, where are they getting it from? They're getting it from the competition. When they make a decision of where to try things first, who they go after. They're going after the companies who are out there, the try before you buy products, the people who are doing things which make it easy for you to know who the company is.
You know, I don't want the show to end. We still have a few minutes, but I want to show your book, since we're talking so much about thought leadership. Creating Thought Leaders, Helping Experts Inside of Corporations Amplify Their Thought Leadership. So let's show the book. Talk a little bit about the book, since you obviously are a thought leader. No,
this is a great. The reason I say it's a great book, and it doesn't matter that I wrote it. What's great about it is the overall book concept. The concept of the Think Aha book. So we're at thinkaha.com. Okay. Is the fact that
we're showing your information,
which is awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
The books are comprised of 140 Twitter-sized quotes. So if you want to read the whole book, you got 15 minutes. I think you said you took 20 to 25 because you were really absorbing it.
Yeah, I'm trying to really.
but Steve, what's really interesting is if you read 3 quotes in the book and that was enough for you to have your aha moment where you decide to take action and do something else, I've accomplished my goal. So we have a number of books in this series that actually do that. And then we also have an application, a web-based application where you can easily not only read content, but share it on social media, right? So if you go to app.thinkaha.com, what you're doing is you're actually reading things that are relevant for you. Ted Rubin has a great book on return on relationships. We have 70 plus books in that series, and we're going to be adding, I want to say that we're going to be adding 100 a day, but not yet. But at the moment, we're at 10 to 20 a month, and I want to increase that really significantly. And what's fascinating is the ability to be able to get content and share it with your audience and help people recognize you, the author, because they're amplifying your messages to their audiences.
So let's combine, you were on the show 5 years ago, and you were talking about the importance of authorship, of having your own book. Let's tie the two together. What role, and you sort of have answered this a little bit, but what role does being an author play in being a thought leader?
You know, even though we talked about this and I was a big evangelist, and still am, of books today.
And that episode still airs.
and even being a big episode of a fan of books back then, what's still fascinating is that you still are given amazing amount of credibility by being a book author. There are many things you need to do to be a thought leader. Right? You need a platform to stand on. You know, that platform, once again, if it's Twitter and you have a large following, we have a nice Twitter following, or if it's LinkedIn and you have a group or something else, you need that platform to stand on. But what's interesting, what helps you stand out a lot in today's world is a book. Now imagine if you want to be the author of a book, but you don't have 100 hours or 1,000 hours, but imagine taking stuff you've written in the past and being able to pull a book together of 140 Twitter-sized quotes and call that a book. Well, that's kind of where we're spending energy now. That's something that I want to encourage everyone to do. And so we've put processes in place that just make it super easy for you to actually do that and start sharing it, because what you need to do to be the recognized go-to expert is share interesting quotes that people like. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think I was telling you one before, the difference between knowledge and wisdom.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
So knowledge is knowing that tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put that into a fruit salad. Right? So very compact thing, but if you're ever explaining the difference between knowledge and wisdom in the future, you should share that.
So you've published, what is it, 300 books at this point?
So we've published over 300 titles.
Are there a couple that you'd like to just briefly profile or just at least mention?
Oh, there's some phenomenal.
Or there's just too many. I guess We're showing your website and all the information, but they're probably like all your children, right?
It's we published the first ever book on LinkedIn, which is happy about LinkedIn for recruiting. This was before LinkedIn actually was making any money. We then followed up with Jason Albert's book, I'm on LinkedIn Now What? We did I'm on Facebook Now What? We have a ton of social media books. What's really interesting is our Think Aha series, which fascinates the ability to actually grab and learn stuff quickly. We have a fun book called Plan to Win. We have books on how to get the right job, what to do when moving out of high school, moving into college, what to do after college, and then each step along the way. There's some really fun and entertaining books. Now, let me tell you, we need a whole lot more, right? I want every verb, noun, adjective
so
to be a Think Aha book. So
you're open to the would-be authors that are watching the show?
Please go to thinkaha.com and take a look at that. And particularly, the app-based books is a phenomenal way for you to share your information in the marketplace. And it's as simple as putting together 140 really compelling Twitter-sized quotes. And then what's fascinating is getting your friends, family, your evangelists to start sharing that content for you. Because it includes your Twitter handle, includes other things, and it brings people back to you. You start grabbing that interaction. When you start interacting with other people, it's an opportunity for them to know who you are and help recognize
So it takes networking to a whole nother level, doesn't it?
Building
connections with it.
Absolutely. Steve, I'll tell you one story I referenced before.
We have about 30 seconds.
Oh, 30 seconds.
Yes.
Well, we have a show called Thought Leader Life. It's thoughtleaderlife.com. And what's really interesting is looking at the thought leaders there, and all of those are people I've met in the past or met just recently through social media.
So it is networking at its highest level.
Yes.
Okay. Listen, thank you so much for being on the show. Hopefully it won't be 5 years before you're on the show again.
Thanks for having me, Steve. It was always great. Never enough time.
It goes by so quickly.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching You're Hired. If you have any input for us about this show or suggestions for future shows, feel free to contact me at steve@bayareacareercoach.com. Do check out the website. You'll find the 12 keys to getting a great job. Sign up for the free career newsletter. Watch past episodes of the show. Find out about the career coaching I do. And also I list the contact information for everybody who's been on the show. So if you want to contact Michell, you can there. And we're showing your information, but your website again is?
So thinkaha.com.
Think-aha.
Or the app is app.thinkaha.com.
Yeah, we're showing all of that so Awesome. They can directly contact you.
Perfect.
So, and my website is www.bayareacareercoach.com. That's www.bayareacareercoach.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time on You're Hired. And we're not going to wait 5 years to have you back.